In July, Cracker Barrel sold 26 of its own restaurants. Not closed them, sold them. The land, the building, the parking lot, to an institutional real estate investor for about $77 million. The next morning, the same doors opened at the same hour. The same people cooked the same biscuits. The rocking chairs were still on the porch. Nothing on the menu changed, and no customer could have told you anything had happened. Because the restaurants didn't go anywhere, Cracker Barrel is still running all 26 of them. It just doesn't own them anymore. It rents them. If you followed this company at all in the last year, you know what the coverage has been about. A logo, a remodel, an argument about a sign that got very loud. This is not that story. While that argument was happening, the company was doing something to its own balance sheet that almost nobody covered. It's public, disclosed in a filing anyone can pull up in about 30 seconds. Here are the terms, straight out of the filing. Cracker Barrel will pay about $5.7 million a year in rent across those 26 buildings. That's the starting number. The rent rises on a fixed schedule every year, and the company does not disclose by how much. The lease can run up to 40 years, including renewal options. And it is what's called an absolute triple net lease. That phrase is carrying a lot of weight, so let me translate it. Triple net means the tenant pays the property taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance. All of it. So when the roof on one of those 26 buildings needs replacing in year 19, Cracker Barrel replaces it on a building it sold. Now look at the same deal from the other side of the table. The buyer put in about $77 million and collects about $5.7 million in year 1. A return of roughly 7.4%. And it does no work. It doesn't fix the roof, doesn't pay the tax bill, doesn't hire a single server. It owns the ground, and it collects. Run that rent out across the full 40 years at the starting rate, and it comes to about $228 million. And that's the floor, not the estimate. The real figure is higher because the rent escalates and we aren't told by how much. $77 million in, at least $228 million out. That, by itself, is neither a scandal nor a mistake. Companies do this constantly for ordinary reasons, but it tells you what was actually sold here. And it wasn't a building. When a company owns the building it operates in, it owns two separate things. The first one is obvious, an asset, worth money sitting on the balance sheet. The second one is the part people miss. Owning the building is the right to leave it. If a location stops working, the owner can close it, sell it, and walk away. That right costs nothing to hold, and it's invisible right up until the day you need it. A 40-year lease is that right, inverted. A commitment to keep paying for one specific address, whether or not that address still makes any sense in the year 2050. That's what got sold, not a building, an exit. And here is where this stops being a piece of news and starts being a pattern. This is the fourth time. In 2009, Cracker Barrel sold 15 stores and its distribution center and leased them back. In 2020, 64 more. In 2021, 62 more. And now, 26. That is 167 restaurants sold and rented back by a company that, as of September 2025, operated 657 of them. Out of those 657, it owned the land and the building at 358. The other 299 were already leases. And more than half of those leases, roughly 56%, are buildings Cracker Barrel used to own outright. Apply July's 26 to that same count, and ownership moves from about 54.5% down to about 50.5%, which means Cracker Barrel is arriving at the point where it rents as many of its restaurants as it owns. So why now? Why sell the ground in the middle of the roughest publicity year this company has had in decades? Cracker Barrel answered that itself in its own press release, in a line most people scrolled straight past. The transaction, it says, is tax efficient because it lets the company use capital loss carryforwards that otherwise would have expired. Here's what that means. A capital loss carryforward is a tax credit you earn by losing money. You bank it and later use it to offset a gain. But it doesn't wait forever. It expires. So the company was holding losses that were about to turn into nothing. Selling real estate that had appreciated generates a gain. The gain absorbs the losses before they vanish. Which means the timing of this sale wasn't set by the restaurants at all. It was set by a clock inside the tax code. And the $77 million didn't go into the stores. It went to pay down the company's revolving credit line. Debt down, rent up. Now, the same filing, the same document, the same day, contains the other half of this mechanism, and it's the half that proves the point. Cracker Barrel also exited Maple Street Biscuit Company. It sold the trademark and 35 locations to a company called Biscuit Belly and announced that the remaining 16 would close. Those 16 were leased, and walking away from 16 leases cost the company $6 to $8 million in cash. Severance, lease termination, exit costs. The company calls those figures preliminary and says they may change. Read those two announcements next to each other. On one page, what it costs to leave buildings you don't own. On the next, 26 more buildings you no longer own. Here's the number that makes all of this land. In the first 11 weeks of its fourth quarter, Cracker Barrel's comparable restaurant sales fell about 2.5%. And in the same announcement, the company raised its profitability outlook for the year. Both of those are true at once. Sales down, outlook up. That isn't an accounting trick, it's arithmetic. You can raise a profit outlook by selling assets and closing a division without one additional customer walking through the door. The restaurants didn't get better. The company got smaller, and it owns less of itself. Across the first 9 months of the fiscal year, Cracker Barrel took in about $2.47 billion in revenue and earned $19.5 million in net income. That is a net margin of about 0.79%, less than a cent of profit on every dollar that came through the register. Against that, the new rent on those 26 buildings is $5.7 million a year, roughly 29% of everything the entire company earned in 9 months, every year, rising. And the largest obligation on this balance sheet isn't the debt. Long-term debt is about $337 million. Long-term lease obligations are about $608 million, close to 1.8 times the debt. So when you read that a company sold buildings in order to reduce its debt, understand what that sentence is actually describing. It reduced the smaller obligation by enlarging the larger one. On August 10th, a new chief executive takes over. David Dino, a career finance man, chief financial officer at Yum Brands, at Pizza Hut, at Bloomin' Brands before he ran it. A balance sheet operator, walking into a restaurant company that has spent a year arguing about who it is. Cracker Barrel's advantage was never the biscuits. It was the land at the exit. 358 pieces of American highway, bought early and held. For 17 years, it has been selling that advantage back to itself and booking it as a stronger balance sheet. You can sell the building and keep serving the food. What you can't do is sell it twice. The other side of this deal, who buys 26 restaurants and rents them back at 7.4%, is the next one.